Hey, friends. Have you ever felt like the life that you want is just one big, scary decision away? Well, that's what I felt. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the 7 steps of how to become unbound. Now, it's a little more nuanced. There's some complicated parts of it, but I want to talk you through how to become unbound and how we can do that while working with the new year or the new calendar year. If you are with me, you might know that I believe that the first real part of the new year is in April, just like the regular seasons, and we are going to be ready to bloom in springtime. But I want to give you some practical tips today to take this season of the new calendar year when everyone starts to create their vision boards or set their intentions for the year, and take this time to actually give you some tangible steps to become unbound or even a little less stuck in the life that you find yourself in now. So, friends, grab a cup of tea, grab a notebook, and let's dive in. The first step is really getting quiet. It's doing nothing. Do nothing. um, and I think that's really important, is because you want to start to listen. If there's something that you are feeling like, boy, this is not right, or something, you're feeling this voice in your head, this whisper, what you really want to start to do is start to pay attention. And this is kind of exactly what happened to me, was that I started paying attention to the little signs in my body. I started paying attention to the Sunday scaries. Like, I think we've normalized Sunday scaries so that they're just, yep, they're just hope Sunday's not so scary for you. And it's like, what are we doing? I don't think our days of the week should be labeled by scary. Like, what if your Sunday was like yay days or something? And you got to be excited about the week. Like, I sit here on Sunday and I'm like prepping and planning the meetings, the people that I get to talk to, the episodes that I get to record, the clients that I get to meet with and bring their podcast to next levels. Like, this is exciting stuff. So I want to share with you that you want to start to listen to those whispers. Is there a knot in your tummy before you walk out of the door to go to work? Is there a headache when you get to work? Is there something in your life where, like, there's a sign or a symptom that you've just been kind of gaslighting yourself into believing is just the weather, is just the thing that you ate yesterday? And I think sometimes we do this to ourselves just so that we can stick in the comfortable, safe environment that we know, the safe job, the safe relationship, in the pattern that keeps us safe from any type of change. But I want you to start to notice these little signs and symptoms and write them down, and just start to see if it's a pattern or if they're a one-off thing. Like, do you get a headache every time you go to work? Do you feel a tummy ache every day before you go to work? Do you feel like there's something off in that relationship and you just keep getting this feeling of like, oh, no, I don't want to do that? And I want you to start to pay attention to that. So that's step one. Just start to pay attention. It's the new year, and I know everyone wants to race out and go do the things, but actually, I just want you to chill. Do nothing, but pay attention. Okay. You ready for step two? Let's do it. Now that you're aware of what's going on in your body, and maybe you've taken the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks to start to understand what's going on, signs and symptoms, you're writing them down, even a notes app on your phone. I want you to start to also ask yourself the question, if nothing changed for the next 12 months, how would I feel? And I think that's one of the scariest parts, is there's scary changes that happen in the micro every day. Like, you change roles at your job, you change jobs altogether. You maybe let go of a friendship that was draining you or a relationship that was no longer in alignment with you. But that's fine. And that's scary. But is I think the scarier part is to stay exactly where you are and have nothing change. So I think on top of you recording how you're feeling going forward and those little moments that could actually mean a lot more than you think they're going to mean, I want you to start sort of weighing out the cost of what happens if nothing in your life changes, right? What's going to be that cost? Are you going to be more drained? Are you going to have less energy? Are you going to be farther away from that life? Or are you just going to be, right in the same spot that you are today, and you are still in that exact same place and still that much further away from the life that is yours? That's what I want you to start to think about. If nothing changed, where would you be? And are you going to be happy with that? One of the things that I like to do is think about, my 90-year-old self. What would she want me to do? Like, if I can think of and imagine, visualize me, Carly, in my rocking chair. I was taught this by my life coach, Kaylor Betts. So full credit to him. But this was the conversation that I ended up having with my 90-year-old self. And it was this beautiful experience of being like, ooh, she would tell me to go do the thing, even if it's scary, and to not sit here for the next 6 months and do nothing about it. Okay, so let's talk about step 3. What is that first step? Now that you're like, okay, I'm understanding that I have signs and symptoms of stuff that's not in alignment. I know that I will still be drained. I won't be closer to my goals of living a little bit more free than I am right now, because right now I'm feeling really stuck. Let's move on to the actual tangible steps that you can do. So the next tangible step I want you to take is a values practice. So I have done this a couple different ways. I would recommend just hopping into Chat GPT or whatever version of AI that you get to use. And you're going to ask it to basically walk you through a values exercise. And in the end, in some of the buckets of your life that you prioritize the most, whether it's relationships, money, job, your feelings, where you are in your life, family, you're going to get it to break down your top 5 values in life. And then it's going to sort of prompt you through. You're going to ask it to give you question by question of how you want to feel in those areas of your life. So if you value family, how is it that you're going to put family first in these next changes that you're going to make? If it is, how you show up at your job, how do you want to show up at your job? Like, what are the things that you value in your day to day, or in like overall in the macro, that you want to bring to the forefront? So this was a really cool exercise that I did for myself, that I needed to understand that, like, for me, health and wellness was one of my top priorities. So I wanted to make sure that whatever job or change that I made, I was able to afford more of the health and wellness practices that I wanted to do. So I still wanted to be able to afford, a little bit more organic food, whole food. I wanted to be able to have time to make food at my house. Okay, so then I walked through all those things, and then I understood that, okay, I actually want a little bit more time, and I do want to increase my income so that I can support that habit and that value. And, my values weren't on, what was a value that I mean, I think, adventure. So I'm not super one to like go and book like another. I mean, I did this. I did go backpacking. I probably wouldn't go back to do that again. I think I'm more like find a home base and travel to a beautiful country, but less about like the adventure, backpacking around the world or doing 7 countries all at once. Like, adventure wasn't on my value to-do list. So although I might have some sort of a travel bank account, that's not top priority for me. So in that, I also knew that I didn't necessarily want a job that took me all over the place. I'm such a homebody. I love my home. And I discovered this through this values practice. So working from home or at my local cafe or sort of, wherever I kind of wanted to, was a value of mine. I'm very much like a cozy home nesting type of person. I like things in my space to be where they are. I'm very type A Virgo. So that was a value of mine that I got really, really clear about. So this is what I want you to do is walk through a value practice that really gets you to zone in and prioritize those things that matter the most to you. And this is going to then define or help define the type of life that you want and how it's going to look a little bit more free or how it's going to become unbound. Now, step 4 is something that maybe you haven't thought about. We do talk about this on the podcast, but I need you to feel safe in this. So, one of the things that I did was that I knew I wanted to make a change. And I had sort of started, I understood that I had started saving. I wanted to eventually, in my mind, I wanted to eventually buy a house. So I had started saving. But what happened in the year between doing what I wanted to do was that basically I stayed at my job. I didn't make any moves, but I started saving like crazy. I also started to like put things and my finances in order so that things were in the right places. And I just sort of buckled down on that so that I could do what I needed to do. Cause I knew that one of my fears was like the finances and making sure that I could pay my bills and all that stuff. I'd always been taught that like to be really smart with my money. That was a thing that my parents instilled in me. So what I wanted to do was make sure that that part of the safety mechanisms in my brain, I didn't want finances to be a scary thing. So I just started to save and save and save and understand that I had a bit of a safety blanket to fall back on so that when things, if I didn't get my clients right away, I knew I'd be okay. I also knew that, I stayed in my house, which had some pretty cheap rent at the time. And I made some moves that in the long term maybe weren't so comfortable. Like not buying as much, or maybe, I scaled back. I know I just told you health and wellness was one of those things. I scaled back on my supplements. I didn't do as much of that, so that maybe it was a little bit uncomfortable. I had to stop spending a little bit, and I, made some choices with where I was living, but they ended up being the thing that I needed in that moment so that I could feel safe enough to make this big move. Maybe it's a relationship. Those are really tricky. Maybe you start sort of planning that exit, or maybe it's a friendship that you're just like, this isn't serving me anymore. Start putting those little things in line. You start sort of making a plan with yourself and making sure that you are, regulated through these big changes. I also started to implement morning meditation. I knew that I could get really, really big, like my nervous system could get really, really strung out. So I started trying to implement morning meditation, a bit of breath work into my practices so that I could, fall back on that practice when things started to get a little bit, outside of my comfort zone. And, maybe I spent a month or two with not a whole lot of clients or working at that junior kind of intern rate. And yet I knew that all the prep and planning that I had done made me feel safe enough that I could make that move or charge those rates because I was a noob in the industry. So whatever it is that you want to do to make yourself feel more safe, whether it's talking to a friend, finding a counselor or a therapist to help you, walk through changing of relationships or whatever it may be, start that part now so that you can feel regulated. Okay. Step 5. Here we go. This is the step where you do have to get a little bit brave, but not too brave. This is where you start to talk to people about your goals. And I remember specifically, I knew that I wanted to start talking about this. I knew I wanted to leave teaching. I knew I wanted to work online from wherever I wanted to and make my own hours. I knew that that was kind of my new definition of freedom. So I remember talking to my RMT, who's actually been on the podcast, Kendra. She's amazing. And during one of our sessions together, I was getting a massage and I just sort of, I don't know what brought it out in me, but I know how important this moment was I said it out loud. I said, I think I'm going to leave teaching and get into social media management. And that moment was something that I reflect back on. And I now know that that was super important, not only because Kendra ended up becoming a client of mine. So super exciting. She literally was one of my first clients that I worked for. and worked with on her social media. And although I didn't stay in the social media realm, I started to understand that I needed to start to tell people about this. I needed someone else to witness the new decision process that I was going through. So talking to her about that was literally like, not only did I get to hear it for myself, I got someone else to witness my new goals. And then it made it easier. Then I told another person. Then it was like a whisper to someone else, hey, I think I'm thinking about leaving teaching. And although, yes, that person maybe gave me a little bit of validation. And there were some people who I told who were like, what do you mean? Don't do that. Absolutely no. So that definitely can happen. And I want you to be aware of that. And that's where those regulation and nervous system tips come in, where you have your breathing, you maybe are creating a gratitude practice where you write in your journal, what you're moving towards, the things that you're grateful for right now in your life. Whatever it is, you're relying on those regulation practices, but you're starting to tell people. And it doesn't have to be everybody. It just has to be a couple people that you feel safe enough with to start to voice this new dream about yours. I think I might let go of that friendship because I'm not feeling super held and safe in there anymore. I think I might leave, gosh, I've never left a marriage, but I've definitely left a relationship. And maybe you start to tell somebody that you feel safe with that, like, you think maybe that might be ending soon, or, I think I might leave my job. Start talking about it to someone who makes you feel safe, and not for the validation, but just to see how that lands when you say it out loud. And I think that's where, those things start to become a little less scary when you start saying them out loud and you have someone else hear them. And then for me, if you have faith, or a faith in the universe, if there's spirituality in your life, if you have a faith in God, whatever that may be, then all of a sudden, like, God or the universe hears that. And for me, when that happened, it was kind of like part of a manifestation process, because now it was out there. It, like, my voice and your voice carries energy and vibrations. And so now that vibration is out there. So that was a really key moment for me. So start talking to people about this after you've gone through all these different steps. Find one or two people that feel safe, that won't judge you for what you're about to do, but maybe they have your best interests at heart, and tell them about it and see how that feels in your body when you speak that truth out loud. Step 6. This is going to be your tiny baby micro step. This is going to be it. So you've told someone, you've kind of gone through your values practice. You understand what freedom might look like. You maybe see where the path could lead you down. The path might be kind of dark. You might not know, the lights might not be on yet, but we're going to do something that takes you a little bit closer to that path. And this is where you kind of get to experiment. Like, you might find out that that path isn't right for you, and it's just, we need to make a little shift. So this thing is to book the call, buy the course, do the masterclass, which, by the way, usually ends in them, actually trying to sell you their course or their program, but book it anyways. Do the little thing, book the appointment with a therapist where you start talking about your exit plan for exiting the relationship that you're in. Start by investing in that course. Talk to some life coaches about, like, hey, I'm about to change my life. I'd like someone to hold my hand while I do this. So you're going to take that step, that scary first, like, ooh. And for me, one of the things was recording my first episode of my podcast, which will never be aired. It was just like a test run. But I knew when I started to get really clear about getting into podcasting and sharing my story, it was just to record like an episode. So do that scary thing. Make that first piece of content that, maybe you decide that you want to build a personal brand. I mean, not everyone has to go out and be a content creator, but maybe just make that first piece of content, or have that hard conversation with that person. Like, see what's possible. So what in the next 24 hours, or, whenever you've kind of gone through these steps, take your time. But at some point, you're going to give yourself a bit of a window of time where you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to book the meeting, book the consult, invest in the course, have the conversation, and find a little bit of bravery in yourself. So for me, that was record the episode. And that was, I do believe that I started taking a lot. I signed up for as many master classes as I could just to start to figure out what was possible here. I definitely remember I invested in a course, I recorded the episode, and yeah, I just started doing the little things. And honestly, guys, these steps, you might do them a bunch of different times as you start to change the different areas of your life. So whether it's like, okay, I want to change the pattern that I'm in of like overeating or overindulging or being a little bit lazy, book the consult with the trainer or invest in the course that you want to take, and it's going to help you with your eating patterns or, the little habits that pop up in your mind, that like find the person or the thing that's going to help you to do that thing and get you a little bit closer to that goal. And it's just booking the thing, going to the gym for the first time because you haven't been in years. Like just go there, show up, and do the thing that takes that courage and that bravery. And then there's like no pressure after that, but just do the thing. And then we can circle back and see how that felt. All right. Last step, guys. This is another big one. This is where we give ourselves grace. You've done all the steps. Now, I kind of want you just to let this sink in that this is going to be a long game. Just because you had that little first conversation, I can guarantee there's going to be more now. Now that you booked that first course, there's going to be more. And this process of becoming unbound and unsticking yourself from these patterns, relationships, jobs that are holding us back from living our most authentic, honest life, we're going to have to do this over and over and over again. And I can say that I have literally done this process over and over and over again. First, it was my job that I changed. Then it was where I lived. So I started saying like, oh my gosh, I think I'm about to move out of the house that I've been in for the last 3 years. I rent in Toronto. And so I started this whole process over and over again, where it was like telling the person that I was moving out, telling a friend that, I think I'm going to move out on my own. And then it was booking the first viewing to go see the new house, whatever it may be. You keep going through this and know that it is a long game. And that's okay. Like give yourself the grace, feel the emotions as they come up. These are big, scary things that are happening. And I think the number one thing that I have learned from continuing to unwind all the old patterns, unbind myself from these stuck things, is that it keeps on going. You got to feel the feelings as they come. Keep doing the scary things and keep having faith that on the other side of doing that scary thing is the gold, beautiful place that you were looking for. And this is something I tell my clients who want to start a podcast. And I tell them, and this is how we avoid the dreaded pod fade where you only get past or you don't get past episode 20. It's like, I get that starting a podcast is really exciting, but I want you to think about yourself at episode 200. It's so easy to think about what you're going to talk about on episode 2. It is even more challenging to think about yourself at episode 200. So know that you are signing up to do this, not forever. And there will be moments of a lot of change and no change, a lot of change, uncomfort, being in your comfort zone, and then being totally outside of your comfort zone. You're going to go back and forth between these places. And I think it's important to like make a change and then rest, make another change and then rest. And so this is kind of what I want to leave you with is just, we're going to wrap up. Let's go over the 7 big steps and know that all of these little steps are taking you towards a life that feels more yours, not one that you just signed up for, that the pressures of society told you needed to do, but to be in a place that feels like yours, to feel like home in your everyday life, to feel like you've made the choices, and to live in a place that is honest and integral to the things that you want, need, and desire. And that's what we want to go for, because your wants, needs, and desires, like, you only have this one life. I don't mean to be like YOLO, but honestly, YOLO. You literally only live once in this human meat suit in this iteration of yourself. So why not go out and do the wild things and have a little bit of faith that everything's going to be okay? Because you've done all the steps, right? You've made sure that you feel safe. If you're going to make a change, you've thought it through, you've taken your time, and you feel safe enough and ready enough to make this change. That's why it's okay to go slow and think about this as a long game. So we're hearing the whispers, we're noting them, we're keeping track of them. You are going to sort of understand the cost of staying the same and what that would mean if you actually made the changes. You're going to get really clear about your values and what it means to become unbound and to feel a little bit more free. You are going to create safety around these big moments and, really get into some regulation practices, or start to do the things that will help you to find those safety blankets that you can fall back on. Whether it's having those conversations and getting that support from someone. You are going to decide the parts of the story that you want to tell and start to tell the right people. Then you're going to take that one brave little step, and then you're going to give yourself grace to understand that this is going to be a long game. It doesn't have to happen next month. It does not have to happen tomorrow. We're in this together, and we are in this for the long game, and that's okay. So you don't have to flip your life right now in January, in the new year. You can start on Tuesday. You can start in April. You can start when the seasons give us that beautiful new year. You can start whenever you want, but I do encourage you just to start and take maybe one or two of these first steps in the next couple of months as we, start those vision boards, start to understand your intentions. And although maybe we're not, changing our whole life tomorrow in the new year, maybe we are waiting until I find the real new year in spring, when things really do start to blossom. Maybe we're waiting till then, and that's okay. All right, friends, if this episode and these 7 steps lit a fire underneath you or resonated with you, do me a favor and subscribe or follow the podcast. We are coming up with new episodes every Wednesday, and if you subscribe, then it will give you those notifications when a new episode comes out. You can also follow us on Instagram at Becoming Unbound Podcast. And I will leave a link in the show notes to subscribe to the Unbound Collective, where we talk about freedom, where we talk about podcasting, and we talk about all things becoming unbound. I share bits about my story and new tips and tricks all the time. So head down to the show notes, subscribe to our newsletter, or give us a follow. And we will see you on the next episode of Becoming Unbound.